Hey guys, it's Mrs. Smith. I wanted to show you some things that I've been asking. People have been asking me questions about decimals and wholes and fractions and how to talk about them and how they all compare with one another. So I drew you a picture of a tape diagram, and this tape diagram is divided up into 10 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to talk about the whole, and we're going to talk about the pieces of the whole. So underneath the tape diagram, I drew a number line and I've labeled it according to how I divided up my tape diagram. And I'm talking about this particular hash, this mark, as 1/10. I don't know if you can see that. Saying 1/10 of my whole, 2/10 of my whole, 3/10 of my whole, 4/10 of my whole, and so on and so forth. This is something we did, about a month or so ago. Underneath each fraction, I have represented the fraction as a decimal to show you that it's talking about the same thing. This is saying I have 0.1 of a whole, 1/10 of a whole, 2/10 of a whole, 3/10 of a whole, 4/10 of a whole, and so on and so forth up the line. When I get up to 10/10, I'm representing it as 1 whole, 10/10, or just simply this, the 1, because I've moved myself from one side of the decimal point to the other side of the decimal point. Remember, when we're talking about fractions, we're talking about part of a whole. Part of a whole. Decimals are also another way of writing part of a whole. So below, I've changed my place value chart to include the place value, to include the decimal point. So if you think back to the wall above in our classroom, this piece right here is considered a 1. This would be 10, and this one, which I'm not going to label, would be considered what? Would be considered 100. So you are correct. So smart. Okay, so if I'm talking about the ones place here, and I put down the number 4, that means I have 4 wholes. Another way to look at that is I have 4 of these. 4 wholes. Okay? Another way to look at that would be, talking about my place value rods. Okay? If we are going to compare the two. Ooh, that's not very easy to see. All right? We're going to say that this for just a moment is talking about the whole. All right. Now, when I start breaking it down and I say I have 4 wholes and 1/10, then I have 2 different ways I could write that. I could say I have 4 wholes and 1/10, which we know as a what? Janetta, what's that called? Is that a mixed fraction, a mixed number? 4 wholes and 1/10. So if I were to draw that out as a picture, I would say I have 4 wholes and 1/10. 4 wholes and 1/10. Hopefully you notice when I said that and, I'm placing the decimal point there. Okay, thinking about money for just a minute, because we all love money so very much and wish we had oodles and oodles more of it. There's my and, my decimal. When I'm saying that this is tenths, I'm talking about, think about money. So if I went home, or I am home, if I were to pull out a dollar bill, I would put the 1 to represent the dollar right there. If I were to pull out dimes and I had 4 dimes right now, where would I put it on my number line, on my place value chart? I would place the 4 here, representing 4 tenths or 4 dimes, or value-wise, 40 cents. So think about value as far as money goes when you're comparing them. And as you go, you're going to have to compare the wholes to the decimals. So think about the pieces of the whole. So Mrs. Smith loves her flats, and I know that some of you know this about me, but so here's one of my flats. This flat has how many tens in it? Alanis, I'm sure you know the answer. It's 10 tens. So this is going to represent 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 tenths are part of this whole. Now, if I'm going to talk about this piece on our place value chart, we're talking about a different value. I'm going to switch my numbers around, my digits, and I'm going to place the 4 here now. We talk about how our place value chart tells us the value. Well, when I put the 4 here, it changes its value. No longer do I have 4 tenths. I now have 4 hundredths. I now have 4 small units. Okay, so if I were to draw that out for you, here's a whole. I have nothing here, and then this piece would be 4 pieces. Okay, so think about your flat. I'm going to draw a very big picture of the flat. So this is one whole. When I'm talking about here, I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's my whole. I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 hundredths. Because keeping in mind there's 10 tens in here, or 100 pieces. So if I'm shading in 4, I have 4 hundredths. So one way to write it would be this way. The other way to write it would be this way. Another way to write it would be decimal 0, 4, just like I have up here. I hope this helps when you're comparing.